Who is universally loved, but actually an asshole? Old reference, but Gary Berghoff aka Radar from MASH. Apparently he was notoriously hard to work with and generally an asshole to the movie and show cast and crew, but his character was so beloved that viewers never thought he was like that. On the flip side, poor Larry Linville, Major Frank Burns, was known to be an extremely nice guy, but got sneered at and generally treated like crap by the public due to his character in the show. Just goes to show you should separate the art from the artist. Not sure if they are universally loved, but I used to work in restaurants for the House of Mouse, and both Howie Mandel and Bobby McFerrin were total jerks. Acted like they were completely above everyone else, and both of them let their bratty kids run screaming around the restaurant, always smart when people carrying hot trays of food are everywhere. I had a lot of positive celebrity interactions, but those two were awful. Can't stand to listen to Don't Worry, Be Happy since. It's become public knowledge now, but Ellen DeGeneres. I met her, briefly, while working events at Universal Studios FL. Back in the mid-2000s she would on occasion film her talk show on location at Universal. My job would call for me to interact with Ellen and her crew for prepping and crowd control measures. There were two occasions that raised an eyebrow. First was behind set. The show was getting ready to start and I went back to tell her crew that we were ready for her to make her way to the stage where her show was being recorded. When I walked back there I saw Ellen yelling at a crew member, inches from his face. She was belittling him and threatened to leave him in FL. Second occasion was brief but impactful. One of my co-workers was standing somewhat close to her, back to back with her. Ellen turned around, looked at her with a look of disbelief and after a couple seconds said, "Aren't you just an invader of space?" She scoffed and walked away. We were both looking at each other thinking WTF is her problem. So for all those years I always thought of her as a phony while all of America loved her. I was not surprised when all those stories of her being awful to work with came to light. I already had experienced it. Rachel Ray. Loved her show. Until I went to see her live. In between takes she was a very not nice person. John Stamos helped his friend rape someone and was still bragging about it decades later. I don't think he's famous enough to be universally loved, but Mitch Albom, aka the author of Tuesdays with Morrie, hosted him at an author event for a small venue and he was fucking furious that the event was so beneath him. Was furious we didn't have a plate of fresh fruit for him, he didn't have a rider or anything demanding we have fruit at the ready, just expected us to know, was furious that more people didn't show up to fawn over him, was just generally furious. Instead of talking about his book during the lecture, he spent 20 minutes taking a steaming dump over the staff, venue and audience. Ironic given the subject of his books. Edit. The only person we should talk more was J.A. Jance, who writes a handful of detective series and one inexplicable collection of poems. She loved doing events at our place and was there every 6 months to promote her newest book. She had a huge and devoted following which baffled me because her events are insane. She once spent an entire hour singing for the audience, not well. When we tried to tell her we were now closing, she sort of waved grandly to her adoring fans and said, "Not until these people have heard me talk about my books," and then kept us open an additional hour while she mostly didn't talk about her book. She also always demanded we had copies of her poetry book on hand despite the fact that no one wanted it and we could rarely even get copies from the publisher. Once we even wound up buying some from a discount bin at Costco just so we could technically have some on hand. Edit 2, it may have been a Walmart discount bin. It's been a minute. From personal experience, Bill Nye was an absolute asshole from my interaction with him. It was perhaps the saddest moment of Don't Meet Your Heroes in my life. Martha Stewart. I witnessed her call her assistant and I quote, a worthless piece of shit. No one should be called that for accidentally dropping her handbag. Edit. I also offered Martha a bottle of Fiji water and she said she only drinks Voss. Bill Nye, everyone I've ever talked with who met him has terrible stories. He's just a grumpy and mean asshole. Steve Jobs. It's pretty well known that he was a giant asshole, but he's still pretty romanticized in the tech sphere. From what my fiancé told me is that Beyoncé is extremely entitled and rude to people. He worked in a restaurant where many celebrities would go to, and he loved most of them but absolutely hated Beyoncé and Jay-Z. Celebs I've had great interactions with / saw them being awesome: Jack Black, Trevor Noah, Weird Al, America Ferrera, Neil Gaiman, Tawhid Epps, 2 Chainz, Jenna Mori, Jenna Marbles, Michael Render, Killer Mike. Celebs I've had terrible interactions with / saw them being awful: Donald Trump, pre-2016. He was a total jackass. He treated his wife like dirt and he talked to a black co-worker of mine like he was his personal slave. Chris Pratt mocked a woman he was with for being clumsy for a really long time and made everybody uncomfortable. Also didn't tip his waiter. Michael Jordan asked management to get that ugly guy out of my sight. I don't want to look at his stupid fucking face. James Corden, huge jackass and an unbearable drunk. Ruined more than a few people's evenings by just being an annoying prick. Joel Osteen was super smiley but extremely unfriendly and had the most unsettling vibe I've ever encountered. Amy Schumer, very difficult guest who made a lot of demands, didn't say please or thank you, snapped her fingers at people to get their attention and was very loud. I worked at a certain hotel / casino / restaurant chain place that a lot of stars have stayed at. The first few you meet really blew you away, and then after a while you're like, Andy Samberg is just picking his nose like nobody is watching, huh? The only celebrities I actually met were America Ferrera and Joel Osteen. The rest of the people I mentioned I just saw my co-workers dealing with. Second-hand accounts that were fun to listen to: Jordan Peele is a great tipper and generally just seems cool AF. Mike Trout is kind of a dumbass but not in a bad way. Emma Watson gets very sweaty very quickly but sticks it out like a fucking champ. Jason Bateman tries a little too hard to be funny when he's around other celebs. Shaquille O'Neal is pretty nice and a little weird but that's okay. He also made bubbles in a drink he was given by blowing into the straw. Absolutely nobody liked meeting Kevin Sorbo and the other celebs avoided him like the plague. Naomi Osaka is absolutely the most wonderful person ever and deserves an award for being so nice all the time no matter what. Lil Wayne is funny as hell and talks about football a lot. Kevin Feige is socially awkward. Mark Ruffalo is kind of a corny douchebag. And John Green acts like he thinks he's really nice but he's actually kind of an oblivious jerk. Handed his plate to a Latina woman at the function he was at but she wasn't working, just another attendee. Ed and Lorraine Warren. I'm not talking about taking advantage of people in vulnerable states and exploiting fear and trying to get famous by proving the paranormal, but Ed kept a young girl in their house. They told neighbors she was a fallen woman they were helping out by giving her a job as a live-in maid or nanny. She wasn't. She was a child and he was a predator, and Lorraine did nothing about it, and yes, they had a kid in the house. Really sickened me to find out, cause I like the Conjuring series as horror films and just enjoyed them for being cookie ghost hunters. Boy was I wrong. Steve Harvey. For those who want to know, watch his interviews on women and atheists. He's cheated on his wives, physically abusive, acts like religion is the only thing that between him and killing and raping people. Tim Allen lived near me for a while. Always a pompous ass. However, the gentleman who plays Gus Fring on Breaking Bad is a real good guy. Remembered my name and says hi to me when we run into each other at Whole Foods. He also tipped the cashier at WF $100 just because. Jimmy Savile. Was loved. Died. Found out he was a child predator. This question needs an explain your answer added to the end. Ellen's fall from grace has been well deserved and overdue. Edit. Just to clarify, she's not a comic book villain like Bezos or Dick Cheney, she's just an immature narcissist with zero tact or grasp on reality. There are plenty of good clips / compilations on YouTube that shows her wildly out of touch behavior. My personal least favorite is her singing to a sleeping baby in a drugstore through a megaphone as the horrified mother is in complete disbelief. Kevin Spacey was until it all finally came out. India Bollywood actor, Salman Khan. Key to almost all his fans. He ran a campaign called Being Human that was just presenting him as a good person who cares about poor and needy. Actually, it was just a publicity stunt for his few criminal cases like killing innocent people while drunk driving and killing endangered animals. His fans see him as a role model, but the campaign was just to get him a clean chit from those criminal cases. After all the criminal charges were taken away from him, there is no being human is happening. Adding to that, he ruined a lot of upcoming actors, singers and other performers' professional life in Bollywood because he didn't like them, or according to him they insulted him one and another way. His personal life is also shady. All of his girlfriends ended up relationship because of his personality, possessiveness and sadistic behavior. He is promoting nepotism in the film industry. As I discussed before, he ruined a lot of people's lives. I've got my suspicions about Steve Harvey. Me, sorry to let everyone down. David Dobrik is probably one of the most tragic ones, not only because he's a piece of shit, but because even if he was a great person, it's depressing that people even care about that content and actually watch that. Plus, indeed, he's a piece of shit abusive sociopath. Oprah. Chevy Chase. He is known to treat his co-workers like crap and has thrown out some racial slurs. From the shit that I've heard, apparently Nicolas Cage and Jared Leto. Meanwhile, apparently Alan Tudyk, Brendan Fraser, and Nathan Fillion are the nicest people. Edit, y'all blew up my phone last night. How the hell did this get 3.1k upvotes? Dr. Phil. He takes advantage of mentally ill people for money. Edit, he isn't universally loved, but he is very successful and is good at hiding his dark side. Wilson. The way he just floated away at the end like their friendship meant nothing. What a dick. Before it became public knowledge, I always had to tell people what an asshole Bill Cosby was 20 plus years ago. Oprah. She spent decades getting paid by every quack with a pseudoscientific health product to appear as guests on her show. It's no wonder her apprentices are a dubious psychiatrist and the quack-ass weirdo doctor who continued her business of using the trust of gullible Americans to sell snake oil. Salvador Dali was a Hitler lover. Jennifer Lopez. James Franco. Dude gets caught trying to sleep with underage girls regularly, like he isn't even good at hiding it, yet he gets a pass every time. Charlie Chaplin. https://n.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/Charlie_Chaplin was, even by the standards of the 1920s, a pedophile. Mr. T is one huge twat waffle. This happened in the 80s and Mr. T was everything at this time. My friend and I were downtown, we were 15 and it was our first trip downtown alone. Saw Mr. T and started toward him for an autograph. As we were walking, he parked his car in front of a bank and two little boys, about 7 years old, ran up to him, happy as hell. It was Mr. T. This bastard yelled, "Get the fuck out my way, you little motherfuckers," and pushed the kid into his friend. I've hated that bastard ever since. If we had cells back then, a lot of stars would have been cancelled. People did and got away with stuff because there was never any proof. Now there is. Jerry from Tom and Jerry. Philip Schofield, if that's how you spell it. Pretty much all your favorite rock stars from the 70s and 80s had underage girlfriends. Some even adopted them from as young as 14, and became their legal guardians so they could live with and have sex with them, and essentially keep them trapped at home to not get caught. Steven Tyler and Jimmy Page stick out, but Bowie and Prince get dis. Honorable mentions. I'm sure that's just a start. Edit, my bad, the Bowie claim has yet to be corroborated. Edit 2, not just the 70s and 80s, rock stars were all recorded history. Maya Angelou was a raging bitch. The gal in the office next to mine had to coordinate her visit to our university. She said in her 30-year career of coordinating VIP celebrity speakers, Maya Angelou was the only one though treated her like absolute shit. Jackie Chan. I wouldn't say he's universally loved, but definitely way too popular in the West. It's pretty common knowledge here in Hong Kong, abusive husband and father, effectively disowned an illegitimate daughter, lots of whoring and alcohol abuse, sold out Hong Kong during political unrest in favor of China, yet was banned from the Chinese Communist Party due to moral failings. https://www.google.com/amp/s/amp.scmp.com/news/people-culture/China personalities/articles/3140926/martial arts star Jackie Chan wants join. Edit, typo? Nicki Minaj. She's a rape apologist, so yeah, asshole. Until recently. Ellen. Eric Clapton. What a douchebag he turned out to be. Michael Jordan. Isn't the Armie Hammer documentary filling this need?